Um, so lovely to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for those of you who are unfamiliar, this is Karine Jean-Pierre. She is an activist and a political wonk. She's a frequent guest as a commentator on NBC and MSNBC, and has written a beautiful book, which
Yeah.
I made it about halfway through last night,
Oh,
and
wow.
I find it both lovely and inspiring.
Oh,
Um,
thanks. Misha,
I
you did not have to do that. I appreciate that. It's very kind of
I
you.
did have to do that. Well, I mean, the really professional thing to do would have been to actually finish the book prior to our interview. Um, but I am really interested in talking to you because we've had a couple of panels on my Instagram in the last month and a half, talking about the wake of the George Floyd protests and killing, and about racial injustice and inequality in America. And one of the questions that comes up most often in these conversations and after these conversations, both with my fans and frankly friends, are calling me saying, what can I do? I know I can donate money to organizations that are doing good work. I know I can show up at protests and make my voice heard literally with feet on the ground. But what else can I do? And of course, one of the most important things that we can do is change the leadership in this country. We
Absolutely.
can elect officials, we can elect a president, we can elect governors, we can elect congressmen and senators who will change the laws that govern this land and who will reallocate resources in ways that better serve our country. So that's why I wanted, and I'm so excited to talk to you about working on Joe Biden's campaign and your insights into how he is going to make a real material difference, and also how we can best support that campaign.
Well, thank
Um,
you. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you, Misha, so much for having me on today on this IG Live. I know you've been doing a number of these. And thank you for your support to the Joe Biden campaign. We really appreciate all that you do. You're amazing. You're an amazing actor. You're an amazing activist yourself. I know that you're really incredibly passionate about this moment and about politics. As you just mentioned, I'm with Joe Biden currently. I've been on the team for about a month. I'm his senior advisor for him. And I joined the campaign in the last month because I knew that we needed, and so, like so many of us, we need change, right? We need new leadership, we need change. And I believe that Joe Biden is going to bring us that change. And so when people ask, what can we do? I say, please get involved. Get involved in this moment. This is the most consequential, most critical election in our lifetime. And I am not being hyperbolic about it. All you have to do is watch what has happened the last 4 years to know that we need change and we need to dig ourselves out of this hole. And the way we do that is to have leadership at the helm, change that leadership, and that is Joe Biden. Look, Joe Biden has a long history of being a leader. He understands how to get things done. As we know, he was the vice president for Barack Obama for 8 years. He served as a senator, and I had the pleasure of serving in the White House. That's when I met Joe Biden, when I served in the White House 10 years ago. And he understands, not only can he lead, but he also has heart and compassion. When you listen to him, when you hear him speak, especially this past weekend when he gave the 4th of July, his 4th of July speech on Independence Day, he spoke about the moment. He spoke about what is happening currently with inequality, with the unrest that we're seeing because people want to uproot finally or start having the conversation on how we can uproot systemic racism. And he talked about that. While Donald Trump, what he was doing, he went to Mount Rushmore the day before and even the day of, and he is just kind of putting more and more divide into this country, talking about cultural wars, racial divide, the bigotry, the nastiness, trying to divide us, where Joe Biden is trying to bring us together and have that critical key conversation. I mean, look, Misha, we are currently more than 131,000 people have died in this country alone. Those are moms and dads and grandmothers and cousins and friends and you name it, people who have lost loved ones. And we have no plan. There is no national plan in this country on how we are going to fight this deadly, deadly virus. And tens of millions of people have seen their jobs just gone due to this virus. And so the leadership needs to change, and we need to have, serious conversation, because there are two pandemics happening. There is the COVID-19 that's killing lives. Every day, as I just mentioned, thousands of new cases per day. And then we have this real conversation we need to be having about systemic racism in this country that has been around for hundreds of years and is enough. And what people are saying in the streets of is enough. It's enough. Enough is enough. And after the death of George Floyd, 8 seconds watching that, there's no way as a country we can't come together and have a real conversation, and that's what Joe Biden is talking about.
I think it's really relevant right now to talk about, people say, what can I actually do to make real change? And it's really relevant to talk about the actual difference between these candidates. I think a lot of times people get complacent and they think, you know what, they're all politicians. It's all BS. It doesn't really matter who I vote for because nothing's going to change anyway. But if we look at what's happening right now, Donald Trump is responding to the George Floyd killing by having a cursory conversation with the family where the family members report that he didn't even let them get a word in edgewise. Whereas Joe Biden has a call. I was talking with someone else in your campaign who was telling me that Joe Biden had a call with George Floyd's family and was on the phone for 2 hours. And the campaign staffers were like, Joe, we have a fundraiser we have to get you to, come on. But he has heart, he cares, he has empathy and compassion. And that is so important. You need somebody who actually cares at a moment like this when the country needs desperately to be cared for, not somebody who's going to divide, not somebody who's going to go tear gas peaceful protesters to clear a way for, and priests and nuns to clear a way for himself to have a photo op. Not somebody who is going to respond to a moment, a critical moment in our nation's history when we finally have the potential to make real change with respect to racial inequality. And he responds to that by signing an executive order protecting racist monuments. What we see how Donald Trump is responding to this crisis of racial inequity and this moment of potential that this actually presents by trying to take us backward and trying to divide us more. What, in practical terms, what does Joe Biden plan to do to confront these issues and make real change?
So let me just add that not only did Joe Biden call George Floyd's family and had a real conversation with them, but he got on a flight and went to Houston and had a private meeting with their family the day before the funeral. I mean, that's what leadership looks like. And that's what you're supposed to do as a leader. And all we see from Donald Trump is failed leadership in this moment of COVID-19, but it's this moment of this racial uprising that we're seeing, to your point. And I think what we need is real policies. What we need is policies to get us out of this kind of hole, like I said earlier, that we're in. How do we deal with, police reform? And Joe Biden has talked about that. How do we deal with, making sure there aren't this healthcare disparity? Because that's a real thing that's happening in brown and black communities, native communities. There's this disparity with this COVID-19 that's been there. The disparity's been there for a long time, but we're seeing it in a real way currently because COVID-19 is such a deadly virus. So so there's healthcare, there's police reform, there's housing. I mean, there's education. There are these real conversations that we need to be having, and Joe Biden is ready to lead on day one. He's put out policies upon policies to deal with all of these different issues. Now we just need to get him elected so that he can actually be able to put that forward. But like you were saying, you were talking about Donald Trump and his photo op and what he's doing right now. This is not only is this an old playbook for him of what he's doing, this is just who he is, Misha. This is who he is to his core. This is what he understands and what he knows. And I think that's what the most scariest thing about this current moment. When Joe Biden announced back in April of 2019, he talked about, he had this really powerful announcement video about saving the soul of the nation. And he said that because when he saw in 2017, when he saw Charlottesville and he saw people marching, neo-Nazis marching on the streets, talking about taking over and the message and the hate that they were spewing, he was appalled like many of us. And it was too reminiscent of an old time that we had long time ago. But here we are, we were in 2017 and we're seeing this and we're watching this. And he put out an op-ed and he talked about this. And what did Donald Trump do? He talked about there being fine people on both sides. We have to remember a young woman named Heather Heyer died because she was fighting anti-racist, right? Anti-racism. And she lost her life in trying to fight for the better good. And this is what the President of the United States said. So you see, he talks about, once again, Joe Biden talks about the soul of the nation. We see that footage. And that is what we're talking about here. That has not gone away. Yes, he announced in 2019. Yes, that happened in 2017. But in 2020, we're still dealing with the same type of imagery, the same type of vitriol that we saw from this president in 2017. And so we have to keep fighting. Now we have 120 days left. 120 days left. And I ask people who are watching, all your fans and people who love you, Misha, and also love Joe Biden, I'm sure as well, to please just volunteer your time. Join us, take action. We need your help to get involved in this moment. We cannot do it alone. And make sure you register to vote. Make sure your household is registered to vote. Make sure your friends and family are registered to vote. Make sure you figure out vote by mail, because in this COVID-19 crisis, we have to remember that we have to be safe out there and protect ourselves. So that is what's at stake. This is it. Our country, the soul of our nation is at stake.
I think that's genuinely true. I think a lot of times there are campaigns and elections where that kind of rhetoric is thrown around, but it's not quite true. And I think that we are at a juncture where the soul of the nation truly is at stake. If we have another 4 years of Donald Trump, America will never recover from the carnage.
Yeah.
Speaking of carnage, this is another field in which we are seeing a complete failure of leadership right now. You mentioned it just now, but the response that this administration has had to COVID-19 has been appalling from day one. I mean, Trump had intelligence that was letting him know that this pandemic was coming and that we needed to be prepared for it. He dismantled the pandemic response task force in the White House, and his approach to dealing with the pandemic now seems to be pretend it's not happening, deny science, convince the American public that wearing a mask makes you look like a wuss, and forge on as if nothing's happening, while we've seen almost 130,000 Americans die already, and that number ticks up every single day, while we have seen tens of millions of Americans lose their jobs, many of them permanently, and he is touting, any day of stock market gains. It's like, we're doing just fine. Nothing is happening. Denial is not an effective form of leadership. How would Joe handle this pandemic differently? And by the way, actually, we can ask this question projecting into the future. How will Joe handle this pandemic in January? Because it's still going to be happening in January, and the fallout is still going to be here in January when he takes office. So what is Joe going to do to manage this tragedy?
I just want people who are watching us today to understand that this pandemic is not over. The virus is not going anywhere until we find a vaccine. And so please be safe out there. Please wear your mask. Please social distance. Do everything you can to protect yourself and the people that you love and just your fellow citizens. It's really critical and important. Please wear a mask and please be careful out there. Look, you were talking about how in January Donald Trump was giving an intelligence briefing about COVID-19 and he just ignored it. Well, also Joe Biden wrote a op-ed in January of this year, saying, "Be mindful here because this is going to be an outbreak." And he knew from then that we needed to be really mindful and careful because was a serious ordeal that we were about to undertake, a global pandemic that hit us really hard. We're in the millions, almost 3 million of cases here. And Joe Biden has said how he would handle this on day one. He talked about testing. He put out policies and he talked about testing. We need testing. We need to make sure federal government, if there's more testing coming out of the federal government and more help coming from the government. We have to make sure our essential workers have PPE. There is not enough. They still don't have enough PPE. We need to zero in, be zero focused, laser focused on making sure there's treatment, proper treatment, and vaccine. That is key and critical, all of those things. And I had mentioned earlier, Black and Brown community, the Native American community are really under siege here, and our seniors. So we have to make sure that they are protected. Those are the ways that Joe Biden is going to make sure on day one, how do we, and before then actually, how do we make sure that we have a response that meets the moment of this current pandemic, which we're not seeing. We are not seeing this. What we're seeing is there's no national response. There's no national plan coming from the White House or his administration. And so we're watching governors and local electeds having to take this on their own. So we have multiple kind of opening, how do we open our economy? And that's not the right thing to do. So Joe Biden has talked about how he would have a national plan on how to safely reopen the economy, which we haven't seen from the president. The president basically puts his head in the sand and says, not me, I didn't do anything wrong, and there's nothing to see here, and we're open.
It's so unbelievably frustrating. We have the Center for Disease Control, which has been put in place for decades to prepare for precisely this, and he has muzzled the CDC. He's pulled us out of the World Health Organization during the pandemic. He is just trying to pass the buck to, I mean, the fact that there are many states in which counties county governments are expected to make these decisions on their own. You need the brain trust of the CDC to make these kinds of decisions. It's maddening. I have one more question for you before we talk about sort of practical next steps of like how we can get involved and what we can do. And that is, I publicly endorsed Joe Biden before Super Tuesday, before it was clear that to everyone that he was going to be the party's nominee, because I genuinely believe that his heart and his experience and his passion for this country and his ability to beat Donald Trump are such compelling characteristics.
Yeah.
But I did have a lot of people when I came out in support of Biden say, I'm a supporter of Bernie Sanders, or I'm a supporter of Elizabeth Warren or Kamala. Actually, Kamala had dropped out at that point. But what can you say to reach out to those voters who are super passionate about other candidates who are no longer running, and how can Biden fold them into his campaign to beat Trump and to take the presidency?
Look, I think this has been an amazing primary, right? We have to love primaries because it is an amazing part of our democracy. You had multiple really talented, amazing candidates, Democratic candidates, incredibly diverse. You had 5 women in the race. You had, 2 Black amazing candidates. You had Latino. I mean, you name it. It was just amazing, amazing to see. You had an openly gay man. And so I am so proud of this primary season. And as Democrats, we should all be proud. As Americans, we should all be proud of what we saw. But here's the thing that was also kind of amazing to see about this primary is the way that everybody came together. Super early. We don't normally see that. We haven't seen that since 2004. 2012, people consolidated and came together, but Obama did not have a primary contender. So people came together real early. You saw Bernie Sanders give a full-throated support of Joe Biden. You saw the same for Elizabeth Warren. You saw the same from so many of them who dropped out. And you saw the unity And I think that's what people have to pay attention to. The unity that you see from the Democratic Party. Here's the thing about the Democratic Party. We actually all want the same thing. We want to make sure education is equal and fair, and that we work on that and make sure that, we get education for everyone. We'll make sure there's health care for everyone, affordable health care for everyone. And we're all, climate change is incredibly important. We believe we're not science deniers. We believe that the climate needs to be fixed and we need to get involved. I mean, so there are things now we're having this conversation about police reform, about, criminal justice reform, and what do we do there? And so we actually want the same thing. It's just our tactics are different. But all in all, we want better for this country, for Americans, whether it's healthcare, whether it's climate change, whether it's education, whether it's housing. We all are fighting for the same thing. And I think that's why you saw that unity come together and gel so quickly, so early on, because they understood what was at stake in this country. All of that is at stake in this country. If you care about immigration reform, that is at stake, especially under this presidency in this country. I think about the separation of children at the border from their families, from their parents. I mean, all of that is at stake. And so that's where we are currently. That's why we see the unity so early. And so that's why we have to, like you said, we cannot, absolutely cannot have 4 more years of Donald Trump. We cannot. There is too much of a hole that we are in, and all of us need to come together, regardless if you were with Warren or Harris or Bernie or whomever or Buttigieg. We need to come together and fight this fight together. And at the end, once we win, we have to build this country up, or get it out of this hole that we're in together. And I think that's what people need to understand and take with them as we go to the next 120 days.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think there were 4 million fewer people that voted for in the 2016 election than 2012, and that more than makes up for the margin by which Donald Trump won. Or people being like, I don't really like either candidate. I'll vote for the third party candidate. That right there also more than made up for the margin by which Trump won. So we cannot afford to vote for third party candidates in this election. We cannot afford to sit home and say, I was a Bernie guy. We all have to get out there and vote like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do. Literally, people are dying because of the failure of leadership right now.
People are dying. That's exactly right.
Okay. Actually, before we go to the call to action, I just wanted to point out, we had a brief chat before this interview. Now I'm just getting into personal anecdotes. So we found points of congruity between the two of us. We both love running. We both have small children or a small child. We both had an interesting sort of political awakening on our first trip to Haiti. But one thing that I read in your book, which I didn't mention on the phone, is that you worked in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's the west wing of the White House is connected by tunnels to that building.
Yeah, and I know a secret about you. Not so secret about you, but I'm going to let you finish.
Oh, you do? You know my secret?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So, I did my research too, Misha.
So I was a White House intern, and most of the staff for the White House are actually in the Eisenhower Executive Office Building, which I'm even older than I care to admit. And it used to, when I was there, it was called the old Executive Office Building. It was renamed when you got there. But you were on the first floor, and I was on the first floor. We may well have been in the same office. I was working in the Office of Presidential Personnel, and every day when we would go in, we'd go through security, and they'd give you this little laminated badge. And then every day when you walked out, you dropped your badge in this little tray and went home. But I would just take the lanyard off and drop the lanyard in the tray and palm the badge as a souvenir, which is not, I don't think that's allowed. so I had like a mobile. I probably had about 50 of them in my room, just hanging in this mobile. And a friend came over, and he was like, "Are these real?" And I was like, "Yep, they're real." It says White House on it. And then he flipped it over, and it said, "The bearer of this badge is outside of White House property. It's a felony with
Yep.
2 years in prison and a
Yep.
$10,000 fine." And with those all added up together, it would have been big trouble for me. Mercifully, there's a feature of the American criminal justice system which I really approve of, which is the statute of limitations. It's well expired, so I cannot get in
It's
trouble
well
for that.
explained.
But I had no idea the amount of trouble that I was actually potentially getting myself in every day when I left my internship.
I'm sure you're not alone. I bet you others did the same. I bet you.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
bet you
probably.
they took the
Well,
risk.
thank you for making me feel not alone
Yeah,
in
I
my
bet you felt better
criminal behavior.
in your younger days.
um, okay, so brass tacks. What can people do right now? One thing that's super important that people pay attention to is that there is a pandemic going on. We've seen voter suppression happening at the polls already in the primaries. People have to prepare for the fact that Donald Trump will do anything in his power to stay in power, and that might mean trying to cancel elections or
Yeah.
trying to prevent mail-in ballots from being legitimized.
Yeah.
So everyone, I'm going to post some links right after this. One of the links is going to be to how you can sign up right now for a mail-in ballot, so you can be an absentee voter and not have to worry about braving lines during a pandemic. Another is register to vote. Make sure you're registered to vote, and make sure everyone you know is registered to vote, and everyone that they know is registered to vote, and then bug them to make sure that they go vote and do all of this work. You mentioned on the phone when we were talking earlier, don't wait till November 3rd.
Yeah.
Do this now. Lay the groundwork now, because if you get yourself down to the wire and find that you've been purged from the voter rolls, which, by the way, they have been doing a lot of purging of voter rolls. And if you don't know what that is, look it up later. But you got to make sure that you are registered to vote. Even if you think you're registered, double check to make sure you're registered. So I'm going to post some links for how you can get an absentee ballot and how you can make sure that you're registered to vote. And can you talk about what people can do for the Biden campaign specifically?
Yeah,
Maybe
absolutely.
down ballot stuff?
Yeah, thank you so much, Misha. That was really incredible information, key information, so folks could know. Look, go to joebiden.com, go to Take a Action. You know, give one day a week. You know, to make phone calls, to send texts. We need your help, as I said earlier. Sign up to help us out. You can do it virtually. Don't got to go anywhere. You can do it safely in your home. We need your help. We need your help. And also tell your story, right? Tell your story to folks out there as to why this election is important to you. And that's critical too. Like, it's important for people to hear what's going on, to get informed, let them know why you're voting, why it's important to vote. Don't assume people are just ready to go. Assume that they're not, and have those conversations with folks. And so we need you. We need you more than ever right now, especially in COVID-19, where it's virtual. We really can't interact. So, you know, get on your phone, text, make some phone calls, get on there, help us out. We really, really need your help, as I just mentioned. joebiden.com, take action today. You know, give us one day a week. That's all I ask for, is one day a week to help Joe Biden win. And also, as Misha was saying, there's a down ballot as well that's critical. All of those policies that I talked about, all the things that I said Joe Biden is going to do, it would be helpful if we were able to take back the Senate. It would be helpful if we were able to hold on to the House. But it's also important, too, those down ballots in your state. That's how we build political power, folks. If we go out and we vote and we take back some of those key critical seats, that gives us the majority, right? And I think because Donald Trump is such a failure in his leadership, he's such a failure in being president of the United States, we actually, folks, have a good shot of not just winning the presidency, but have a good shot of winning the Senate, which was unheard of a year ago or 2 years ago. So this is where we are. This is like the political precipice that we're in right now, where we can take back the presidency, take back the Senate, hold on to the House, and make sure that we are voting in our states in those key down ballot races. So please, please, please get involved. We have 120 days. We can do this together. We can do this together.
It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Thank
That's
you
right.
so much. It's been so
Thank you, my
lovely talking
friend.
to you.
Same here.
Is your daughter there in your home?
She's
She's been
no,
very.
she's actually taking a walk because we knew that I was doing this. So she's not
Mine
here.
are too. Good strategy. They were like,
they
"Can we
wanted to
stay
take the dog
here?"
for a
And
walk.
then they were making each other cry by throwing things at each other. And I was like,
Oh, no.
I would love to help you solve your problems right now, but please go outside.
Can I just say something to you, Misha? The amount
Yes.
of I love yous that are just coming up.
The hearts that are coming up on the
have
screen.
No, and then the I love yous. I love you, Misha. Misha, you're so handsome. Misha, you look so good today. Love you, love you, love you. Supernatural. I'm like, good Lord.
I should do more of this. It's good for my ego.
I'm telling you. I have a little ego for you, and it wasn't even about me.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you,
time,
Misha.
and thank
I
you so much
appreciate
for
you.
doing the good work you do. It's really inspiring.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Fred.
I just wanted to mention one more thing. I will be posting a link to where you can sign up to volunteer for the Biden campaign. And I also wanted to mention, since I failed to do so earlier in our conversation, the title of your book, which I am finding really lovely in so many ways, also because you're being so honest and vulnerable. And I think it's really lovely seeing someone talk about the hard things in their lives in an open and honest way. And then, your optimistic path forward to a really incredible and inspiring career. It's really lovely to see.
Thank you, Misha.
So the title of the book, for those of you who are interested, is Moving Forward, A Story of Hope, Hard Work, and the Promise of America. And it does fulfill that promise. So thank you for your work. Thank you for your time. And I look forward to talking to you at some point in the future.
Thank you, my friend. Be well.
Bye.
Okay, bye, everybody. Bye.